we had planned this for a while. We had a backlog of movies to talk about. Which I can't even remember the list of movies that we had. I remember Cloverfield Paradox.
Yes.
Do you remember anything about that movie?
I do.
Okay, so there's that one.
I remember a lot about it.
Then there's Ready Player One.
Yes. I've got a lot of thoughts about that as well.
Black Panther.
Yes.
And A Quiet Place.
A Quiet Place. Yes, I just saw that. So.
All right, so then let's start with Cloverfield then, because
okay.
I forgot a lot about that movie.
Have you watched it recently? Did you rewatch it?
I haven't rewatched it since I first told you to watch it.
Okay.
So that was like maybe a month or so ago.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw part of it back around then, and then I think I watched the whole thing last week. So It's funny because you had said you hated it so much, and I heard from other sources that it was not good.
Yeah.
So I didn't have very high expectations. And then when I started watching it, I was like, I mean, this is pretty good. When it first started, I was like, this is cool. I was interested.
It looks cool.
Yeah, it looks cool. And it was actually going okay for a while. And then it started to have some major problems. Yeah, I mean, it was never like...
So I can't... Okay, So Cloverfield Paradox, it was originally a completely different independent film. I wish I could remember what the title was, but it was purchased by Bad Robot, J.J. Abrams' production company.
And so they added the Cloverfield stuff?
Yes, it was retrofitted to be a Cloverfield movie.
Nice.
So like there were some things that like the whole B story with the black dude and the kid, like that wasn't originally in it. That was created.
That was added to give you the Cloverfield.
To tie into the whole Cloverfield mythos. But it starts off, I guess, I don't want to go down the whole movie because I can't remember any of it, but it's about a space station that has some ability. I forget what for.
It's trying to generate, so there's an energy crisis on planet Earth.
Okay.
And they're working on some kind of new Higgs boson-based, device that's going to power the whole world if they can get it stable.
Okay.
And they're up there for a while working on it because meanwhile, shit down on Earth is going to hell. I mean, it's dilapidating because there's no energy and there's roving blackouts and all this stuff. And so they're up there and they're burning the midnight oil and it's an international team, which was very 2010. You know what I mean? It was like this international team of people.
Well, I mean, I just watched Geostorm lately.
Oh, I haven't seen
And that's
Geostorm.
Also an international team of dudes on a space station trying to control the weather.
Yeah, in 2010, it was just Russians and Americans.
Oh, really?
But that was... And when that movie came out in like 85, that was the only two countries that mattered to us. It was just
it's like international team of Americans and Soviets.
Yeah, it was like, so they're trying to do this and they eventually get it working.
Okay.
You get the sense that there's some issues amongst the crew.
They got it spinning and then something happened where it just kind of blinked out of our dimension.
Yeah, it goes to a parallel reality, which is actually what it's doing. What it's based on is the Philadelphia experiment. Are you familiar with the Philadelphia experiment? Yeah. All right, so that's a myth, like an American myth of something that supposedly really happened that, of course, probably didn't. But UFO people think it's something that really happened. And that story is
the conspiracy theory crowd.
Yeah, and during World War II, they were trying to invent a cloaking device for U.S. ships. And they thought they could do it by creating a really super intense magnetic field that could essentially, the magnetism would bend light around the ship or something like that.
Yeah.
So they took this destroyer and they put just a crazy amount of electromagnet device on there somehow, and they cranked it on in Philadelphia Harbor or whatever or something like that, and then it disappeared and appeared like in New York Harbor, like 100 miles away, or it appeared somewhere else.
Yeah.
It was there for like 18 minutes or 45 seconds. I don't remember how long it was. But when it came back, it then appeared back in the harbor that it started in, and then the people were like fused with the parts of the boat. And there was a movie made in the 80s called The Philadelphia Experiment. And so in this movie, they do, it's very similar. It's also, they basically use the same premise for Event Horizon. They got a magnetism drive.
yeah.
They fire it up. Ship disappears. They don't know where it goes, and then it comes back, but it's way out in Neptune's atmosphere. You know what I mean? It appears,
And there are demons all over it and shit.
Yeah, then it just basically becomes Hellraiser on a spaceship, which is sad because that movie had that's a great premise. I think it's a great premise. Unfortunately, it's where most sci-fi movies fail is that second act, man. It's just shit starts to fall apart.
I don't know what was going on. Like, so when they realized that they were not at Earth anymore, like they're just out in like open space, and they're trying to determine, what happened. And I guess there was some sort of intrigue going on where maybe one of them was like a spy or something.
Well, yeah. So first off, they notice the Earth's not there, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure out where they are. They realize they're on the other side of the sun or something, So some shit it's in the sky, but it's upside down. It's like, they're not upside down. We're upside down.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is they hear some screaming, and they open up a panel, and in the panel is this random person that none of them know.
Oh, yeah,
and
they
she's
checked.
fused
That's
into
right.
the ship, straight out of the Philadelphia experiment. She's fused into the ship.
Well, she's not really fused. She was just like in a panel because they pulled her out, right?
No, yeah, but she had like wires and shit going through her and stuff. She was literally like fused. There were parts going into her. And so they had to like cut the wires and remove the parts, and took her to sick bay, and they fucking worked on her. And then when she comes to, she says like, "Hey, the German guy fucked us. Watch out for him."
Oh, right.
And
yeah.
the German guy was already like under suspicion, not really by anybody in the crew except for the Russian guy. The Russian guy didn't like the German guy, and he accused him earlier in the movie of sabotaging their drive for whatever reason. But in this reality, they don't know they're in a parallel reality. It takes them a long time to figure that out. Honestly, too long for a bunch of physicists and shit. You'd think that would be like, okay, we're not where we're supposed to be.
So then, let me ask you this then: how does the severed arm that talks to the dude tie into all of that?
It doesn't, and this is where my problems with the movie begin. So, the movie, it sets up a premise, and then just has a bunch of crazy shit happen.
It seems like
that
it
has
just
nothing to do with the premise.
It seems like it just kind of abandoned the foundation that it had laid out in favor of just doing something completely fantastical that didn't really make sense.
And that's the problem is like several major key plot points are basically results of essentially just magic. I mean, and they kind of say, because there's okay, so you guys went into a parallel reality. Well, okay, why would the guy's arm get sucked into the thing in this reality? I mean, okay, so maybe the matter's not stable because that's how the girl became fused with the thing originally, and it's have a new instability. Okay, but it's not like when they defused the girl, it wasn't like her blood had a life of its own, or it just didn't make a lot of sense. And then the arm it was just like some freaky shit that seemed like it was freaky, like a. I understand where they would get there. It's like if you're thinking like, don't show me some cool stuff,
right.
Don't tell me, show me. The arm does some interesting stuff. That's a interest. But the thing is what's driving the arm? Is it so-and-so's arm from another reality?
Can he communicate through dimensions via his severed arm?
Yeah.
Or does the arm have a mind of its own?
Yeah, exactly. Is the arm somehow controlled by the other guy but he's dead because they didn't leave their reality. They basically showed up in this other reality. So there's not any. It just doesn't make any sense. And what's even worse, I'd even let that go as just like, okay, that was dumb. It just didn't have any purpose. It wasn't driven by anything
right.
other than, it's like if this is truly, maybe at one point it's like a chaos or entropy, it's like, okay, but it's, but there was a lot of shit like that. Like the guy with the worms, where the worms are in his stomach.
Yeah.
It's like, why would the worms be in his stomach? And why would that thing be in his stomach? And he lived for a little while with that thing
I felt like if he had transported to his dimension with worms in his stomach, he would have dropped right away.
or the worms were in his. It became like a Prometheus
Yeah,
moment. Or
earlier on, you could see it like moving around by his eye and shit.
It wouldn't be in his eye. You know what I mean? It wouldn't, and his eye goes off to the right. It's just a lot of shit that just like they thought, oh, this will be weird. But it's at no point is it tied to anything else. Like it doesn't, like that movie, if it was just a movie about some people that end up, I mean, because it's like basically what you have is you got a movie about some guys that are working on an experiment to save the planet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even the stuff of like it causing the Cloverfield stuff, which seemed totally weirdly tacked on because they have like a conspiracy theorist video guy basically laying out how it ties into the plot of other two movies, you know what I mean? Just via some like call-in talk show. And then where he goes, it's not just this, it'll happen in the past. And she's like, you know, because it'll, you know, it's our time. It's like, okay, so that covers how there's Cloverfield monsters in the movie Cloverfield in the past.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like,
and it's not necessary. There's nothing about it that like, I don't get. So why tie this into the Cloverfield?
Well, here's the thing. I think that it's your answer. I don't know the answer to that, except for the fact that I liked the idea, like if you watch Cloverfield or 1123 Cloverfield Lane, wherever that's the Cloverfield
10 Cloverfield Lane.
10 Cloverfield Lane. That movie was great.
Yeah, that was a fantastic movie.
And it doesn't really seem at all really related to the shit that happened in the first Cloverfield.
Well, because the only thing that they tack on to it, because that was also another movie that was an independent movie that they purchased and tacked the Cloverfield name on. But like at the end when she, spoiler alert for 10 Cloverfield Lane, at the end when she escapes, you just see the street sign that says 10 Cloverfield Lane. And like,
great.
That's it.
That's all I needed. In a way, it's almost like a weird anthology series.
Yeah,
like Night Gallery or something.
But they're trying to build it into like almost a cinematic universe where
too literal. I don't. My point is, if they had just called it the Cloverfield Paradox, and they had talked about it like they did. You know what I mean? It'll cause what they call the Cloverfield Paradox, but they didn't go into all the weird exposition about how it's going to change the past and all that shit. If they just said it's going to cause a Cloverfield Paradox and it's going to fuck up our reality. It could cause black holes, or we don't know what it's going to do. That's all I need to say.
Yeah.
You know, because your imagination would, you know what I mean, would fill in the gaps, and it wouldn't be so clumsy. Where they get into trouble is when. And that's a whole separate thing, you know. It's all the other stuff just it doesn't make any sense, even within the kind of loose reality they've set up in the show. It's just kind of, and the problem is when it doesn't make any sense at all, it's just a bunch of random shit happening. Then there's not any kind of sense of true, I would say stakes, but stakes may not be the best term. I mean, it's like it's arbitrary.
Like it doesn't have I wouldn't say stakes, but for me, I didn't feel like there was a threat. Like I didn't really know quite exactly what the threat was.
Yeah.
Or even what the end game was. I guess they wanted to try to get back to Earth, but I don't know. It was one of those things that was really difficult for me to follow because there were so many different things that seemed random and didn't really make sense to me.
That was the thing. It's like if it was just, so I think one of the worst parts of the movie is when the guy who lost his arm is repairing the things, and then part of the thing magnetizes. Yeah. And it starts to pull the glue off the stuff, which is cool. But then why does the glue weirdly attack him? And wrap him up like
the glue did attack him.
Like octopus and pull him back.
Pulled him back
because I thought it was being magnetized, pulled out.
Well,
and there was way more.
Didn't it like it? Though I think the glue came off of what it was on and it hit him, but I think it still pulled him in the direction that it was being pulled off from. Right?
No,
did it pull him back?
It pulled him back. Away from the wall. It like kind of sucked him up. And it was way more glue than there was.
Yeah, there was a lot more glue.
It's like doesn't make any sense. And it's like, what has it got a mind of its own? It wants to kill this guy. I mean, it like when you get to that point, it's just like, okay, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous that it just takes you out of it. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it takes you out of the movie.
Yeah, and it's a bummer.
In the movie anymore.
And it is a bummer because I like the actors in it, and I like Chris Dowd, and they were all fine. And the movie looks like the I guess shocking thing to me was that the movie actually looks really, really good. Like it's a beautiful looking movie, and it was just And in addition to all of that, just the other stuff with the tacked on dude with the kid that had, again,
Actually goes nowhere.
goes absolutely nowhere. It was just such a weird, boring waste.
So yeah, Cloverfield Paradox wasn't so good. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, because I mean I had really low expectations.
Yeah.
By the end, it was pretty shitty. But by the end, I'd already been somewhat entertained for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of like, let's get through it, you know. But I mean, the crazy thing was, I love the very ending was gold, because they like, oh, you're back, come on down, get in the pod, and he calls his friend who happens to work at the station, and he's like, they're here, they're coming down. He's like, don't let them come down. Don't let them. He's like, we had to send them, man. We couldn't. It's like, are you serious? You couldn't tell them, like, okay, listen, you guys can come on down, because we don't really have a lot of time. I mean, I think they say, like, we lost contact. We couldn't tell them, you know? It's like, you think that would have been one of the first things out of their mouth. Hey, we're being attacked by a huge lizard creature down here.
You may want to hang up there for a little bit.
Yeah, just hang back if you got oxygen. Or, tell you what, you know, come on down, but just watch out for the lizard creature. You know what I mean?
You know, I really wish that, and to me, I felt like, and we'll talk about this movie a little bit later, A Quiet Place probably would have tied in more to the Cloverfield cinematic universe, maybe in a cleaner way than Cloverfield Paradox ended up doing. But you're right. For what I watched, I was entertained for, you know, a little while.
Yeah.
And, well, no, let me take that back. Let's just move on to the next movie then.
Okay.